Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood raised eyebrows after she made comments regarding state surveillance on Monday in The Telegraph. Shabana Mahmood revealed that she wanted a system where the eyes of the state can be on you at all times, while invoking an enduringly controversial proposal by the 18th century philosopher Jeremy Bentham. In comments reported on Monday by The Telegraph, Mahmood said she wanted to use artificial intelligence for surveillance as she proposed Minority Report-style policing. AI and technology can be transformative to the whole of the law and order space, said Home Secretary in an interview with former Prime Minister Tony Blair last month. When I was in justice, my ultimate vision for the part of the criminal justice system was to achieve by means of AI and technology what Jeremy Bentham tried to do with his panopticon. That is, that the eyes of the state can be on you at all times. The eyes of the states can be on you at all times. That is utterly chilling. Extremely chilling. Now, a government source tried to downplay her comments, yet ended up making it sound worse. A UK government source told The Telegraph this doesn't mean watching people who are non-criminals, but she feels like if you commit a crime, you sacrifice the right to the kind of liberty the rest of us enjoy. The entire point of freedom is everyone to have freedom. Otherwise, none of us are free. I mean, does that mean that, you know, once you commit a small crime, a small petty crime, you're now trapped for the rest of your life? Plus, this is always a gateway, right? They tell us, it's all about keeping an eye on criminals, but ultimately it includes the rest of us, which is their plan. Police chiefs south of the border are also considering plans to use AI in a bid to predict whether crimes will happen, The Telegraph reports. In plans that echo the 2002 Steven Spielberg film Minority Report, police forces are looking at monitoring 1,000 men they believe pose the highest risk to women to predict whether they will commit crimes. Minority Report depicts a world where police can foresee crimes before they happen and arrest the would-be perpetrators. It is considered dystopian science fiction. That is insane. This is insanely scary. Now, on one hand, they're saying, look, if you're a criminal, you don't get to have the freedom and the liberties the rest of us enjoy, but don't worry, if you're not a criminal, you're fine. On the other hand, they're literally saying they're going to use AI to predict crime, and they're looking at men. So AI is going to build a portfolio, which, by the way, AI is often wrong. It often gives you wrong information. Just try ChatGPT, you'll see. They're going to build a model of 1,000 men they think are more likely to commit crimes or be a threat to women. Now, that opens the doors for any kind of things when it comes to characteristics. That opens the door for racism. You know, think about it. AI isn't actually artificial intelligence. It's LLM, large language models. So essentially what ChatGPT and others do is scour the internet for information, collates it for you and puts it in front of you. But of course, the internet is full of misinformation and lies. So there's many blogs, websites, media companies, particularly on the right wing, will put out or manipulate statistics that say black men are more dangerous, they commit more crimes. Okay? Whether that's true or not, that's on the internet, and AI will pull that information thinking it's accurate. So we could have a scenario in which the British police is building a portfolio which is targeting black men because AI told them to do so. Now, by the way, this shouldn't just worry if you're a black man. This should worry everyone. The idea that we're going to use AI, which is, again, very, very inaccurate, to predict if you're going to commit a crime, that means all eyes of the state are on you at all times, regardless if you're innocent or not. We are moving towards a world of crime prediction with the use of AI, and it's being pushed by this government. Mahmood also references Jeremy Bentham's panopticon, in which inmates are seen at all times.
Panopticon. The panopticon is an architectural design proposed by Jeremy Bentham in the late 18th century. Here are some images of a panopticon. It's designed in a cylindrical manner with a tower in the middle. The central tower has windows that let the person inside it be able to see everyone that's in the outside ring of the building. The outside ring is divided into individual rooms or cells, so there is no communication between two individuals in separate rooms. These cells in the outer circle also let light in from the outside circle of the building, which has two effects simultaneously. It lets the person in the central watchtower to see everyone in these cells, but it does not allow the individuals in the cell to see who is in the watchtower.
Barry, these comments are really chilling. I mean, are you shocked, actually, that that's something Mahmood has said?
I was shocked when I saw the quote crossed my Twitter feed, and the one about the eyes of the state on you at all times, and I saw it and I read it again, and I thought, this can't be real. So I went to find a link to read the interview because I just couldn't believe that she would have thought that it was a good idea to say that. And especially to talk about the panopticon as well is I think this word is overused, but this is dystopian. What she's talking about is dystopian. And to reference the panopticon and the obvious comparisons to Minority Report, as you said, those are all sort of dystopian concepts, right? Like Minority Report is an actual, as you said, a work of dystopian science fiction, or one of those articles said. So I was shocked by it, and I think we should all be really, really worried about this. We're walking blindly into it as well as a country, and in other countries too, and there doesn't seem to be any pushback, and they make it sort of hard to push back for some politicians because they wrap it up in conversations about how it's going to make us safer, about how it's going to combat crime. I mean, to see them talking about how it's going to make women safer, right? That is a very, very difficult thing to argue against. But we know that it's not just about crime. We know that when governments are given surveillance powers for one thing, they very, very soon creep, and they're used for many, many other things. And what we're in danger of losing is the right to privacy. I mean, that's one. I get incredibly annoyed almost when I walk around London and I see police facial recognition cameras, and I know that they're scanning me. I find that an incredible invasion. Having said that, I have stupidly given my face to Apple to open my phone, and I really regret that I did that. So you have the right to privacy being threatened, which I think should be a sort of a fundamental right that we should protect. But then the other thing that really worries me about these new technologies being pushed by the government is the impact that it can have on dissent, right? We everything from the right to protest, right? We've already seen that under massive attack in this country. We've seen how they want to clamp down on the right to protest. Now imagine that they have the tech to track everybody who's ever gone to a protest, everybody who wants to continue to go on protests. Or look, we saw this in the US. I was living in the US during the BLM protests. I was living in Washington DC, and I remember the protests that happened there, how the protesters were trying to throw surveillance off. So they would wear they wore masks that they thought could confuse AI. They obviously covered their faces, and then there was the notion that they could track phones. So if if your phone was at the protest, they could then track that phone back to your apartment or your house. So people started to leave phones at home, and then they were talking about different phones that communicate with each other, and whether on and on and on, they can track you everywhere. So okay, take the right to protest, that's one. But then when I zoom out, I actually worry about the ability in this world to rebel, to resist, right? Sometimes, and I'm not just talking about Britain, I'm talking about this encroachment on the entire world. Sometimes governments need to be overthrown, right? Sometimes people need to stand up for their autonomy and fight for it. And soon, I worry that we're not going to be able to dissent in any way or shape. And that's what they want. And that's what we need to stand up against. And I think the scariest thing is I don't really see a mass movement against this kind of tech right now. And I think it's sorely needed.
I agree. There isn't really a movement. Of course, there are organizations out there such as Big Brother Watch, but it doesn't get enough attention. I mean, interesting what you said about when it comes to sort of the private economy or private companies, like giving your face, your visual ID to Apple. And this is the inescapable world we live in. I mean, I read Cory Doctorow's book, Inshitification, and he actually talks about how companies lie about privacy. They'll say, actually, Apple have a really good privacy policy. They just basically lie. They use your information. And of course, that information can be sold to governments anyway. So it is everywhere. It feels unavoidable. But what we really need to have, we need to have an internet and tech bill of rights, because I agree with you when it comes to right to privacy. That shouldn't be just a slogan. I think that is a fundamental human right. Again, yeah, whether it's protesting, the right to resist authoritarian governments, it will be hard to do. Of course, many governments will tell you, well, we're not going to use this for bad things. But then you look at how Palestine Action, it's not even Palestine Action activists, it's people who hold a sign saying they support Palestine Action, right? If they're getting arrested for just holding a sign, what stops the government going, maybe we'll just arrest them for something they posted? I mean, what stopped? They've got the power to do it, so why would they stop there? I also think beyond politics, if you can really say that, or people who are apolitical, I fundamentally believe in the right to privacy anyway, even if it's like, not about protecting your right to protest or resist, but just people should be allowed to walk through society without tech scanning your face. I think
100% agree. I know we talk about politics on this show, but park politics for a second, like you just did. Yeah. You're absolutely right. I can't walk through London without being tracked the entire way through. I can't get on the tube and travel somewhere. I can't, you can't move around, with any semblance of privacy. And again, I understand that, there are some benefits when it comes to tackling crime, but we're getting to the stage where those benefits are absolutely outweighing the negatives.
Yeah, and I think if we were to say, because a lot of people seem to have this idea that, well, if you do nothing wrong, you got nothing to worry about. I would say, imagine someone walks into your house, complete stranger, just breaks in or just walks in, starts taking pictures of you, taking videos of you, taking all your information, just left. You'd be like, what the fuck? Who are you? Why can you do this? We would rightfully be like, that's weird. Yet governments on an institutional level can effectively do that. Okay, they don't physically go into your house, but they don't need to. And I think when it's maybe sort of explained in that way, maybe people understand. But it's incredibly so scary. And also coming from a Labour government, which I actually think the Blair right wing of the Labour Party has been more authoritarian than Conservatives. At least there's a very small subsection of Conservatives who have that libertarian bent, right? Whereas Blair and the Blairites, it's a thing they're so obsessed with. They're more invested and passionate about using the state to clamp down on people than it is to end child poverty, for example. Like, this is a thing that they've wanted to do for a long time. Digital IDs is another part of it. And I think when it comes to Blairism, it's about weaponizing the state to clamp down on freedoms.
Yeah, and I think they were pushing national ID, not digital ID, but national ID as far back as the 90s, the Blairites, and it got dropped back then for various reasons, as we've just seen the U-turn on the digital ID, well, a semi-U-turn. But I don't know why they keep coming back to this, because there is pushback on that, right? I'm saying that there's not much pushback on the encroachment of surveillance technology, although, yes, there is Big Brother watch, but like you say, it doesn't really gain traction in the media or anything. But digital ID did, and digital ID was unpopular with the left and the right. So I think that they were scared politically away from the digital ID, which again makes me wonder why they're so obsessed with it as a policy. Like, surely they could have known that it would be very, very unpopular. And obviously there are huge reasons to be anti-digital ID, quite apart from the ones that we've already discussed, like privacy and the right to protest. Digital poverty, right? I read somewhere that about 4 million people in the UK don't have a smartphone. Right, what are they going to do? Are they going to give out 4 million smartphones so that people can access social services, so that people can apply for jobs, homeless people, etc.? I mean, there are all kinds of social reasons why a digital ID is a bad idea. So now what do we have? We have the right to privacy, which is huge. We have the right to dissent, which is huge. We have problems with creating a two-tier system, which is huge. There are so many reasons for the country not to go down this road.